The story begins in a large, circular chamber, floating in the heart of a bustling space station. This was no ordinary room. It was the central meeting point for the Galactic Council, a place where representatives from hundreds of species gathered to discuss the future of the galaxy. Around the table sat beings of all shapes and sizes, their eyes fixed on a holographic display of the galaxy's most recent developments. The mood in the room was tense. A slow, almost oppressive silence filled the air as the council members exchanged uneasy glances. They had all heard the rumors. The Deathworlders, the humans, were changing. For centuries, humanity had been known across the galaxy for their peace, their kindness, and their reluctance to engage in conflict. But something had changed, and the once peaceful humans were starting to show signs of aggression. The galaxy was on the brink of war, and no one knew exactly how or why it had started. At the head of the table, a seasoned alien diplomat named Stor turned to the hologram in front of him. His species was known for its intelligence and strategic thinking, but even Stor was starting to feel the weight of the situation. He had worked with humans for decades, but now he felt a sense of uncertainty that he had never experienced before. He cleared his throat, breaking the silence. "We all know the rumors. The humans are no longer the peaceful species we once knew. Something has shifted." He paused, looking around at the other representatives. "We must ask ourselves, why?" The council members nodded, their faces full of worry. For centuries, humans had been a stabilizing force in the galaxy. They had made treaties, brokered peace deals, and fought alongside the other species against common enemies. But now, that reputation was in jeopardy. The once docile humans had recently refused to cooperate with certain galactic alliances, and most alarmingly, had been preparing for war. A tall reptilian figure from the Varan species spoke up, its voice cold and calculating. "We have received reports from our spies. Human military ships have been mobilized at an alarming rate. They are gathering forces, preparing for something. But what?" Stor nodded, his expression grim. "Our scouts report that Earth has fortified its defense systems, and their fleet is expanding. The Deathworlders have long been known for their powerful military, but they have always been hesitant to use it. Now, they are preparing for a conflict." A quiet murmur spread across the room as the weight of Stor's words sank in. The humans were unpredictable at the best of times, but this was something entirely different. They had always been reluctant to resort to violence, but something had forced them to reconsider that stance. Something, or someone, had pushed them past the point of no return. Just as the council members began to discuss the possible reasons for this sudden change in the human approach, a new figure entered the room. It was a human representative, Captain Mara Jackson, known for her calm demeanor and deep respect for the Galactic Council. She had been called to the meeting in an emergency, though she was not part of the council itself. She walked into the chamber with a sense of authority that immediately silenced the room. Her uniform was pristine, the insignia of the human military shining brightly against the dark blue of her outfit. She stood tall, her eyes scanning the faces of the council members, as if she had already anticipated the question they were about to ask. Stor wasted no time. "Captain Jackson," he said, his voice full of suspicion, "we have heard reports of increased human military activity. Can you explain what is happening?" Jackson took a deep breath, her face unreadable. "I can," she said quietly, "but what I am about to tell you will change everything." She paused for a moment, letting the tension in the room build before continuing. "Humanity has been provoked. For years we have been peaceful, but that peace has been shattered." Stor leaned forward, intrigued. "By whom?" "A growing threat," Jackson replied, her voice low but steady. "An alien alliance has been raiding our colonies, pushing us to the brink. We have tried diplomacy. We've tried negotiation. But now we have no choice but to act." The room fell silent. The other council members exchanged uncertain glances, unsure of how to react. The Deathworlders, humans, had always been known for their restraint, their unwillingness to strike first. To hear that they had been pushed to this point was both shocking and frightening. Kor's voice broke the silence. "What exactly do you intend to do, Captain? The galaxy is not prepared for another war. We cannot afford this." Jackson's eyes hardened. "I understand the risks, but the humans will no longer stand by and do nothing. We will defend ourselves, and we will ensure that no one underestimates us again." The council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The peaceful humans they had once known were now a force to be reckoned with. The room seemed to grow colder, as if the very atmosphere was charged with the weight of what was to come. Jackson's words echoed in their minds long after she had left the room. The Deathworlders had always been underestimated. For centuries, the galaxy had viewed them as a harmless species, a peaceful race with little interest in war. But that perception was about to change. In the coming days, the galaxy would learn that the humans had more strength, more power than anyone could have imagined. And the consequences of their decision to stop being nice would echo across the stars for generations to come. As the council members sat in stunned silence, the tension in the room was palpable. The calm before the storm had ended, and the galaxy was about to witness the rise of the Deathworlders in a way they never thought possible. What would happen next was anyone's guess, but one thing was certain: the humans were no longer the peaceful species everyone had once known. And the galaxy would never be the same again. The galaxy had always been a delicate balance of peace and tension, a web of treaties and alliances holding everything together. The Deathworlders, humans, were once considered an anomaly, a species that chose diplomacy over battle, peace over war. But as the warning signals from Earth grew louder, the galaxy began to realize something terrifying. Humanity's peaceful nature was not a weakness. It was a choice. In the weeks following Captain Murrah Jackson's bold announcement, the rest of the galaxy watched in stunned silence as the Deathworlders slowly, deliberately, began to shift their stance. The alien alliance that had been encroaching upon human territories, the one that had been chipping away at their colonies and resources, had crossed a line. Earth had been pushed to the brink. But the galaxy's reaction to this shift was mixed. Some believed the humans would ultimately back down, as they always had in the past. Others, however, began to prepare for the worst. On Earth, the atmosphere had changed. Military bases were no longer quiet places of peacekeeping. They were transformed into hubs of activity. Ships were refueled, weapons tested, and soldiers trained. The once dominant notion of diplomacy was still present, but now it was tempered with something much darker. Humans, who had long been perceived as peaceful and forgiving, were arming themselves for war. And the rest of the galaxy watched with a growing sense of dread. In the heart of Earth's capital, the war room was alive with activity. The air was thick with tension as high-ranking human military officers sat around a large table, discussing the strategy for Earth's defense. Their eyes were focused, their faces grim as they reviewed the latest reports from the colonies. Captain Jackson stood near the holographic map of the galaxy, her posture rigid, her hands clasped behind her back. Her face was a mask of calm, but her mind was racing. The choice to fight had been made, not just for survival, but to send a message. No one would ever again look at humanity as weak, as an easy target. It was time to show the galaxy that the Deathworlders were more than capable of defending themselves. One of the officers, General Reese, spoke up, breaking the silence that had fallen over the room. "Captain, we've received word that the alien alliance has moved their fleet closer to our borders. They're testing our defenses." Captain Jackson's expression remained unchanged. She had anticipated this. The alien alliance had always been bold, always trying to push the boundaries of human territory. But this time, it was different. This time, Earth would not stand idly by. "Prepare the fleet," she ordered, her voice cold and commanding. "Make sure we're ready. We'll strike first if we have to." The room fell into a tense quiet. The officers exchanged uneasy glances, but they knew better than to question Jackson's orders. There was no more room for hesitation. The Deathworlders had reached their breaking point, and now they would fight back. As the officers began to move, preparing their forces, Captain Jackson walked over to a console and tapped in a series of commands. The holographic display shifted, zooming in on the alien fleet's location. It was massive. Dozens of ships, sleek and deadly, their technology far more advanced than humanity's. But it didn't matter. The humans had something the aliens didn't: experience. Jackson stared at the map, her thoughts racing. For years, humans had been reluctant to use their full military strength, but now there was no choice. Earth's survival depended on it. The galaxy would learn that when pushed too far, the Deathworlders were not the meek, harmless species they once believed them to be. They were a force of nature. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the alien alliance gathered in a vast war council of their own. Representatives from dozens of species sat in a massive chamber, each species unique in appearance and culture, but all united in their desire to conquer humanity's resources. They had underestimated the humans for far too long, but now they were beginning to realize their mistake. A tall, insectoid alien named Stor stood at the head of the table, his eyes glowing with malevolent energy. He spoke in a low, hissing voice that reverberated throughout the chamber. "The Deathworlders think they can stop us. They think they can push back our forces, but they are wrong. We have the technology, the firepower, and the numbers to crush them." His words were met with a series of nods from the other representatives, but there was a sense of unease in the air. They had heard the stories of humanity's strength, of their unpredictable nature, but the aliens had always believed they could control the situation. Now it seemed they were facing an unknown variable. A second alien, a hulking warlord from the Varan species, leaned forward, his voice gruff. "We should strike now. Crush their defenses before they can mobilize." Stor paused, considering the suggestion. He wasn't one to rush into battle, but he couldn't afford to let the humans gain an upper hand. If they were truly prepared for war, it was only a matter of time before they made their move. "No," Stor finally said. "We wait. We watch. Let them make the first move, and when they do, we will strike harder and faster than they could ever imagine." The Alliance's War Council agreed, but even as they spoke with confidence, there was a growing realization among them all. This was no longer just about conquering humanity's resources. This was about survival. The humans were no longer the weak, peace-loving species they had once thought them to be. They were Deathworlders, and they were ready to fight. Back on Earth, the fleet was ready. The Deathworlders had made their choice, and now the galaxy would learn what happens when you push a species too far. The war was no longer a matter of diplomacy. It was a matter of survival. The galaxy would never forget the day the Deathworlders stopped being nice. The tension in the galaxy was palpable. After Captain Jackson's orders, Earth's fleet mobilized at an unprecedented speed. Across the planet, humans, once known for their peaceful nature, were preparing for war. The very idea that humans, the Deathworlders, were now ready to fight sent a ripple of fear throughout the galaxy. Their enemies, who had always taken the humans lightly, now found themselves second-guessing their every move. Back in Earth's war room, the large holographic map flickered as the fleet gathered in formation, ready to engage. The officers were focused, and Captain Jackson's presence in the room made it clear that this was no ordinary operation. The Deathworlders, once content to negotiate, were now determined to send a message that would echo across the galaxy. Captain Jackson, standing at the front, turned toward the officers, her face grim but resolute. "We'll make the first move. We'll strike hard and fast. We can't afford to wait for them to come to us." Her voice was sharp, with the kind of authority that had earned her the respect of every soldier under her command. The decision was made. Humanity would strike before the alien fleet had a chance to launch its own offensive. The Deathworlders would no longer be the victim. The simulation they had been preparing for, the one that had stretched over years, would now become a reality. The galaxy would see what happened when they pushed humanity too far. Outside, Earth's ships, sleek and imposing, began to rise from their hangars. The blackness of space loomed in front of them, as silent as ever, but now it was filled with purpose. Each ship was ready for battle. They had been prepared, trained, and had evolved beyond just being a species of peaceful diplomats. Now, they were soldiers. As the fleet approached the alien alliance's position, tension reached its peak. The communication channels were open, but there were no signs of negotiation. The Deathworlders had given their final warning, and now it was too late for the aliens to turn back. In the heart of the alien alliance's fleet, Stor, the insectoid commander, paced in his command room. His antennae twitched in frustration. He had expected the humans to hesitate. He had expected them to remain passive, as they always had before. But this was different. The humans had already made their move, and Stor knew that this could very well be the beginning of a war unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. "They're here," Stor muttered, his voice barely audible. His sharp, glowing eyes scanned the holographic display in front of him. The human fleet had arrived, much sooner than expected, and they were now in striking range. The alien ships began to move into formation, their advanced weapon systems activating, but a feeling of uncertainty crept over Zor's mind. "Prepare to engage," Stor ordered with a hiss, his voice cutting through the tension in the room. "We can't allow them to gain the upper hand." His orders were followed quickly, as the alien alliance's ships started to power up their weapons. But deep down, Stor was beginning to doubt their certainty. The humans were supposed to be weak, supposed to be easy prey. Yet they were acting like the galaxy's most dangerous predator. Stor could feel it in his bones. This would not be a battle like any other. Meanwhile, Captain Jackson's face remained a calm mask as she observed the incoming alien fleet on her own screens. The alien ships were enormous, their weapons formidable. But there was something in Jackson's eyes, a fire that had been sparked and was now burning brightly. The time for diplomacy was over. The time to show the galaxy what humanity was capable of had arrived. She gave a nod to her second-in-command, Commander Livia, who immediately began relaying orders. The human fleet adjusted its position, flanking the alien ships in a maneuver that was as unexpected as it was effective. The aliens had underestimated the Deathworlders for too long. The humans were no longer the prey. They were the hunters. "Ready all weapons," Captain Jackson said, her voice now cold and resolute. "We're hitting them fast. We're hitting them hard." The first wave of laser fire lit up the dark expanse of space. Human ships fired with precision, their lasers cutting through the alien defenses. The alien ships retaliated quickly, their weapons blindingly bright, as they launched counterattacks. But the Deathworlders were already ahead. Their tactics, refined through years of conflict and survival, were unlike anything the aliens had ever faced. In the midst of the chaos, the sound of explosions rang through the air, followed by the harsh hum of weapon systems charging again. Jackson's heart raced, not from fear, but from the thrill of the battle. The humans had fought many wars before, but this was different. This was the day the galaxy would remember forever. Back in the alien command ship, Stor watched the unfolding battle with growing frustration. The humans were relentless, pressing forward without hesitation, without fear. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. And in the pit of his stomach, he realized that the Deathworlders weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for something deeper, something far more terrifying than any enemy could understand. The galaxy had always feared the humans, but today they would learn why. The Deathworlders were done being nice. They were done being the peaceful species. And as the first battle raged on, that fact became undeniable. The sound of battle rang out across the cold void of space, a symphony of destruction as the humans and their alien enemies clashed with intensity. The human fleet was relentless, striking with precision and speed that left the alien alliance reeling. In the first few moments of battle, the alien ships that had once considered themselves superior found themselves struggling to keep up with the ferocity of the Deathworlders. As Captain Jackson watched the battle unfold from her command station, a sense of cold satisfaction washed over her. The humans were making their mark, proving that they were not the weak species others had believed them to be. The ships of Earth moved with an almost unnatural efficiency, weaving through the firestorm, dodging and returning fire with deadly accuracy. "Captain, we've broken their front lines." Commander Livia's voice crackled over the comms, her tone filled with excitement. "The aliens are retreating." But Jackson's expression remained stern. The fight was far from over. She knew that the real challenge was yet to come. The battle was only beginning to escalate, and the aliens wouldn't back down so easily. At the heart of the alien fleet, Stor watched in disbelief as the human ships tore through their defenses. The insectoid commander was a seasoned veteran, but this was unlike anything he had ever faced. He had underestimated the humans. Their tactics were precise, and their technology, though not as advanced as some of the alien fleets, was far more adaptable than anyone had anticipated. "We need reinforcements," Stor muttered, his voice tense with frustration. "Call for backup. We cannot lose to these Deathworlders." The alien fleet began to regroup, pulling back into defensive formations as they tried to counter the unexpected onslaught. But every move they made seemed to be anticipated by the humans, as if they were always one step ahead. It was as though the humans had been preparing for this moment their entire lives. And in a way, they had. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the news of the battle was spreading like wildfire. Across the planet, humans watched in awe as their fleet fought to defend their honor and survival. The stories of their ancestors, their battles for freedom and survival on their Deathworld home, had shaped a generation that was now capable of fighting for their place in the galaxy. The very idea that the humans were standing up to an alien alliance that had been terrorizing the galaxy for centuries sent shockwaves through the minds of the galaxy's citizens. "I always knew the Deathworlders had it in them," said General Arthur Kane, a veteran of countless wars, watching the live feed from Earth's command center. "They're not just soldiers, they're warriors." But not everyone in the galaxy felt the same way. The alien factions that had once mocked humanity now found themselves on the receiving end of their wrath, and the fear began to spread. Even the most powerful empires in the galaxy were beginning to ask themselves, what would happen if humanity decided to stop being nice for good? On the battlefield, the aliens were scrambling. The death toll was rising on both sides, and the damage was starting to pile up. Earth's fleet had dealt devastating blows, but the aliens had not been idle. Their ships, though slower and less maneuverable, were still a formidable force. The fight had become a battle of attrition, each side trying to outlast the other. As the minutes turned to hours, Captain Jackson's resolve only grew stronger. She knew that if humanity was to send a message to the galaxy, if they were to make it clear that they were not to be underestimated, it would have to be today. The war for Earth's survival, for humanity's place in the galaxy, had only just begun, but the Deathworlders had already set the stage for a conflict that would reshape the future. "We're not stopping until they understand," Jackson said quietly, her voice carrying the weight of a promise. "This is only the beginning." And as Earth's fleet pressed forward, the ripple effect of humanity's actions began to spread across the galaxy. The alien alliance, once sure of their dominance, now faced a foe unlike any they had ever encountered. The Deathworlders had made it clear. They were no longer going to be the peacekeepers, the diplomats, the ones who tried to appease. They were now a force to be reckoned with. In the dark reaches of space, the alien empires began to stir. The galaxy had just witnessed something extraordinary. Humanity, the once quiet species, had risen to challenge the galaxy's powers, and they were doing so with an intensity that shook the very foundations of the universe. As the battle raged on, the question lingered in every corner of the galaxy. What would happen if the Deathworlders stopped being nice for good? And with every alien ship that fell to the humans' relentless assault, the galaxy knew one thing for sure: humanity had arrived, and they would no longer be ignored. The turning tide. The battle raged on, But the tide was beginning to turn in humanity's favor. Across the galactic battlefield, alien ships, once confident in their superior technology, now found themselves scrambling to regroup. The Deathworlders, as they had come to be known, were proving to be a force far beyond what the galaxy had ever expected. Captain Jackson stood at the helm of her flagship, her eyes scanning the chaos unfolding on the view screens. Earth's fleet, though smaller in number, had proven its strength and resourcefulness. They had adapted quickly to the enemy's movements, learning from each engagement, evolving their strategy with every passing moment. It was as if the humans were always one step ahead of the alien forces, anticipating their next move before they made it. "We've broken their main formation." Commander Livia's voice echoed over the comms, brimming with excitement. "The alien ships are retreating." But Jackson knew better than to let her guard down. The aliens had been regrouping for some time now, pulling back into defensive positions, ready to launch a counteroffensive. Despite the initial success, this fight was far from over. The humans had made a bold statement, but the alien alliance wasn't going to back down so easily. "We need to press forward," Jackson replied, her voice steady. "We can't let them recover. We got one shot at ending this before they regroup." As the humans pushed forward, the alien fleet began to shift its tactics. No longer confident in their numbers alone, they relied on their advanced weaponry, unleashing powerful waves of energy at the human ships. The blasts were intense, shaking the Deathworlders to their core. But humanity's fleet was designed to endure. Their ships, while not as sleek and fast as the alien vessels, were built for resilience, able to take hits that would cripple most other fleets. Yet even as the battle intensified, there was something more at play than just firepower. The humans had something the aliens had not anticipated: unity. The crews aboard each human vessel fought as one, with a common purpose driving them. They were not fighting for personal glory, nor for power. They were fighting for survival, for their future in the galaxy, and for the safety of their home. This shared resolve had brought them together in ways the aliens could never understand. In the midst of the battle, a sudden communication crackled through to Captain Jackson's console. It was an encrypted transmission from Earth's High Command. "Captain Jackson, we've intercepted a distress signal from the outer colonies." The message read, "The alien alliance is planning a large-scale attack. We need reinforcements." Jackson's heart skipped a beat. The battle they were fighting was far from the end. The enemy was regrouping, and this was only the beginning. The galaxy's most powerful empires, who had once treated humanity like a footnote in the cosmic ledger, were now waking up to the fact that the Deathworlders were not to be underestimated. Humanity's quiet rise had set the galaxy on edge. And now, the repercussions were becoming clear. "We can't let them get away with this," Jackson muttered, clenching her fist. She turned to her crew. "Prepare to press the attack. We'll fight for every inch. We don't stop until we've secured Earth's future." And so, the battle continued, escalating in intensity with each passing moment. The humans, having learned to harness their greatest weapon, their unyielding will, were pushing harder than ever before. They were no longer the underdogs. They were the storm that the galaxy had been warned about, the force that would change everything. Across the galaxy, the story was beginning to spread. From the outer rim to the heart of the galactic empires, the news of the Deathworlders' unrelenting assault was causing ripples of fear and awe. The galaxy's most powerful species had underestimated humanity's strength, and now they were paying the price. Back on Earth, every eye was glued to the news as the battle unfolded. Humanity had always been known for its resilience, its refusal to back down in the face of impossible odds. And now, in the face of the greatest challenge they had ever faced, humans were showing the galaxy what they were truly capable of. The once quiet species had spoken, and the galaxy had no choice but to listen. In the depths of space, as the alien fleet retreated further and further, the humans pressed on. Their victory was not yet complete, but with each passing moment, The Deathworlders were sending a message that would resonate throughout the stars. Humanity was no longer a species to be ignored. And as the smoke from the battlefields cleared, one thing became clear to all who had witnessed the fight. The galaxy had just witnessed the birth of a new power, one that would reshape everything. The Deathworlders had stopped being nice, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The sound of alarms echoed through the corridors of the flagship as the battle raged on. The crew, tired but determined, continued to fight with an intensity that seemed to defy reason. Captain Jackson stood at the helm, her eyes fixed on the chaotic battlefield displayed on the massive view screen. Ships from Earth's fleet had sustained damage, but they pressed forward, their resilience a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity. "We've made a breakthrough, Captain," Commander Livia reported, her voice strained but full of hope. "The alien fleet is in disarray. They're starting to scatter." Jackson's heart raced with a mixture of excitement and caution. She knew the aliens wouldn't give up so easily. This was just one battle in a much larger war, and the tide of conflict had not yet fully turned. She glanced over at the tactical display, where multiple alien ships were still in pursuit, their weapons blazing. The message from Earth's High Command earlier was still fresh in her mind. The distress signal from the outer colonies had confirmed her fears. The alien alliance had regrouped and was planning another massive attack. This wasn't just a war between fleets. This was a war for humanity's survival. It was a war they couldn't afford to lose. "Get the fleet in position for the next strike," Jackson ordered. "We'll keep the pressure on them until we have them cornered. We cannot let them recover." But as the humans pushed forward, a new challenge emerged. Alien reinforcements arrived in droves, their ships emerging from hidden jump points deep within the galaxy. The situation quickly escalated from a controlled skirmish to an all-out battle. The sky above Earth's fleet darkened with the sheer volume of incoming enemy ships. "Captain, we've got company," Lieutenant Thomas called out, his voice tense. "A new fleet. Looks like a coalition of all the major powers. They've come to crush us for good." Jackson's eyes narrowed. The enemy had underestimated humanity, but now they were making their final move. The Deathworlders had awakened a sleeping giant, and now the galaxy's most powerful empires were coming to finish what they had started. But Jackson wasn't about to back down. The Deathworlders didn't know how to quit, and neither would she. "Prepare for battle," she commanded, her voice steady despite the growing sense of urgency. "This is it. No turning back now." As the human ships formed their battle lines, Jackson watched as her crew went to work. The bridge buzzed with activity as the fleet readied itself for the next phase of the battle. The humans had learned much over the past weeks. They had honed their tactics, perfected their strategies, and now they were ready for the largest challenge yet. The battle began, and the human fleet surged forward with relentless force. Alien ships tried to regroup, but the Deathworlders were prepared. Their ships, battered but unyielding, tore through the alien ranks with precision. The humans' resolve was unshakable, their strategy flawless. The aliens, once so confident in their superiority, were now on the defensive, struggling to maintain their position. But just as victory seemed within reach, the unexpected happened. A massive alien ship, larger than anything the humans had encountered so far, emerged from the shadows. It was a warship of unimaginable size, a mobile fortress that seemed impervious to the humans' weapons. Its shields were impenetrable, its weapons devastating. The moment it appeared, a chill ran through the human fleet. This was no ordinary ship. This was the final weapon of the alien alliance. The Deathworlders had dealt with smaller threats before, but this was a force that could shatter everything. Jackson's mind raced. They couldn't let this ship turn the tide of the battle. The humans had come too far, fought too hard to let this one ship destroy everything. She looked at her crew, her face set with determination. "All ships, focus fire on that flagship," she commanded. "We have to take it down, or we lose everything. We push forward, no matter the cost." The human fleet responded with a fury that could only come from those who had been pushed to the edge. Every ship, every crew member, poured everything they had into the battle. The massive alien warship took hit after hit, its shields buckling under the pressure, but it kept coming. Jackson watched as the exchange of fire grew more intense. Her heart pounded as the alien flagship retaliated, its weapons cutting through the human fleet like a hot knife through butter. Yet, despite the overwhelming power of the enemy ship, humanity's fleet refused to give up. Every shot they fired, every maneuver they made, was a testament to their will to survive. Then, in a moment of unexpected brilliance, Lieutenant Thomas came up with a plan. The humans had one chance left to strike a decisive blow. "We can use the asteroid field up ahead to our advantage," he suggested. "We'll hide the fleet in the debris, launch a surprise attack from the shadows. It's a risk, but it might be our only shot." Jackson didn't hesitate. She nodded sharply. "Do it, everyone. Fall back to the field. We'll regroup and launch our final assault from there." The human fleet pulled back, hiding among the debris. The alien warship, overconfident in its victory, advanced, unaware of the trap waiting ahead. As the flagship emerged from the asteroid field, the humans struck. The first blast hit the alien warship's shields, weakening them. The second blast struck its weapons array, disabling its primary cannons. The third and final strike hit the warship's core, sending a shockwave through its hull. The alien flagship, once invincible, began to break apart, its shields collapsing under the relentless assault. The human fleet, battered but unbroken, stood victorious. The battle was won. But Jackson knew this was only the beginning. The Deathworlders had sent a clear message to the galaxy. Humanity would no longer be the passive species they once were. The universe had witnessed the power of the Deathworlders, and now there would be no turning back. As the debris of the alien flagship floated in space, Jackson looked out at the vast expanse before her, knowing that the road ahead would be filled with more challenges. But with the courage, unity, and unyielding spirit of humanity on their side, the Deathworlders would face whatever came next, and they would not stop until their place in the galaxy was secured. The day the Deathworlders stopped being nice had just begun, and the universe would never forget it. The remnants of the alien warship floated in the cold emptiness of space, its once pristine surface now torn and scorched. The human fleet hung in orbit above a silent, defeated battlefield. As the last echoes of battle faded, the stars shimmered in the distance, indifferent to the violence that had just unfolded. Captain Jackson stood on the bridge of the flagship, her eyes scanning the now quiet battlefield. The adrenaline was slowly wearing off, replaced by a heavy silence. Her crew, too, was quiet, exhausted, yet triumphant. They had just defeated the most powerful alien fleet they had ever faced, a fleet that had come to Earth with the sole purpose of crushing humanity. And they had won. The Deathworlders had finally made their mark on the galaxy. "Report, Commander," Jackson said, her voice calm, though her heart still raced with the memory of the battle. She needed to know everything, every detail. She had to ensure that no stone was left unturned, no threat left unchecked. Commander Livia looked up from her console, her face showing both relief and concern. "The enemy fleet is in retreat, Captain. Most of the smaller ships have been destroyed or scattered. The flagship, well, it's gone. There's no sign of any survivors among the alien fleet." Jackson nodded, but her thoughts were elsewhere. Despite the victory, she knew the war was far from over. The aliens might have been beaten back for now, but this was just one battle. The galaxy was vast, and the enemies humanity faced were numerous. If anything, this victory would send a message, one that would ripple across the stars. "We've made our point," Jackson muttered, more to herself than to her crew. "But they'll come again. They always do." A soft chime sounded from the comm station, breaking the silence. Jackson looked up sharply, knowing the significance of the call. It was from Earth. "Patch it through," she ordered. A moment later, The face of General Abrams, the leader of Earth's unified defense forces, appeared on the screen. He looked every bit the part of a seasoned commander, stoic, yet with a gleam of respect in his eyes. "Captain Jackson," General Abrams began, his tone both serious and proud. "I've been following your progress. You've made history today. Humanity has proven that we will no longer be pushed around by anyone. Your victory will be remembered." Jackson straightened at his words, feeling a deep sense of pride swell in her chest. But she didn't let the emotion show on her face. She had been through too much to let herself get complacent. "Thank you, General," Jackson replied. "But we've only begun. The war is not over. There are other threats out there, and they'll be watching us closely now." General Abrams nodded gravely. "You're right, and we're ready to stand by your side. Earth has never been more united. Humanity is stronger than ever, and we'll face whatever comes next together." Jackson could see the resolve in his eyes. The Earth's forces were no longer just reacting to threats. They were preparing to lead the charge. The Deathworlders had awoken the sleeping giant, and now humanity would no longer be a passive species. They would fight for their place in the galaxy, and they would win. The comm link flickered, and the general's face shifted into a more serious expression. "One more thing, Captain. We've received intel suggesting that the alien alliance isn't just retreating. They are regrouping. There's a much larger force on the way. You may have won today, but tomorrow will be even more challenging. We need you and your fleet to be ready." Jackson felt a surge of determination flood her. The battle they had just fought was only the beginning. They had sent a clear message to the galaxy, but now they had to face what was to come. And this time, humanity would be ready. "We will be ready, General," Jackson said firmly. "And we'll make sure they never forget what happens when they try to push us to the edge." The screen went black as the communication ended. Jackson took a deep breath and turned back to her crew. The battle was over, but the war was far from finished. "Prepare the fleet," she ordered. "We'll need to regroup, resupply, and fortify our defenses. The next fight is coming, and we won't back down. Not now. Not ever." Her crew responded immediately, moving with efficiency and purpose. They had seen what humanity was capable of today, and they knew that, no matter how difficult the road ahead might be, they would stand together as one. The Deathworlders had stopped being nice, and the galaxy had learned that humanity was no longer a species to be underestimated. The next chapter in humanity's rise to power had just begun, and no one would forget the day the Deathworlders decided to stop being nice.